The rooster crowed in the distance. It was the sound Farmer Daniel had heard every morning for as long as he could remember. He stepped out onto the wooden porch, pulling his jacket tighter. The early autumn air was cool, crisp, and carried the faint smell of damp earth from last night's rain. From the barn came the muffled bleating of goats and the impatient clucks of chickens waiting for breakfast. Daniel reached for the feed bucket, just like always. But today, something was different. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw it. A flicker of movement near the old fence line. At first, he thought it was just a patch of snow left behind in the shade. Strange for this time of year. But then it moved again. Daniel froze. There, standing among the fallen leaves, was a raccoon, but not like any raccoon he'd ever seen. Its fur was pure white, shimmering faintly in the morning light, and its eyes, pale pink, blinking curiously at him. "Now, what in the world are you?" Daniel whispered. The animal didn't run. It just tilted its head, studying him like he was the strange one. Daniel knelt slowly, reaching into the bucket. "Hungry, are you?" He tossed a small piece of apple onto the ground. The raccoon sniffed, crept closer, and with delicate little paws, took the fruit and began to eat. From that moment, the farmer knew this was no ordinary raccoon. The days turned into weeks. Every morning, just as the sun began to rise, Daniel would find the raccoon waiting near the barn. He started leaving food, bits of bread, slices of pear, boiled eggs from the coop. And eventually, the raccoon began to follow him during chores, keeping a safe distance, but always watching. Daniel gave him a name, Snowtail, for his pure white, fluffy tail that seemed to glow in the sunlight. One morning, as Daniel repaired a section of the goat pen, he heard a strange sound behind him, a soft, chittering noise. Turning, he saw Snowtail sitting next to Max, the old sheepdog. The two were simply sitting together. Max wagged his tail slowly, and Snowtail seemed perfectly at ease. Daniel chuckled. "Well, looks like you've made yourself at home." Winter crept in early that year. Frost covered the barn roof and the air felt sharp enough to cut. One evening, while locking the chicken coop, Daniel heard a panicked squawk. He spun around just in time to see a fox slipping through a gap in the fence. Before Daniel could move, Snowtail shot forward like a streak of lightning, hissing, swiping with his claws, and making a noise Daniel had never heard from him before. The fox, startled and outmatched, darted back into the woods. Daniel stood there, stunned. Snowtail had just saved his chickens. From that day on, Snowtail was no longer just a visitor. He became part of the farm's daily rhythm. In the mornings, he'd ride on the back of the hay cart as Daniel fed the animals. In the afternoons, he'd nap in the sun with Max nearby. And in the evenings, when Daniel sat on the porch with a mug of hot tea, Snowtail would curl up beside him, his fur warm against the cool night air. One late winter night, a snowstorm rolled in. The wind howled, rattling the windows, and the barn creaked under the weight of the drifting snow. Daniel went out to check on the animals, flashlight in hand. Inside, everything was quiet. Too quiet. He walked to the goat pen and found one of the younger goats shivering badly. Without hesitation, Snowtail climbed into the pen, curled up beside the goat, and wrapped his fluffy tail around her for warmth. Daniel stood there for a long moment watching. He had seen kindness among animals before, but never like this. Spring finally came, melting the last of the snow. The grass grew thick and green, and the orchard trees bloomed with pink and white flowers. Snowtail still roamed the edges of the farm, sometimes disappearing into the woods for a few hours, but he always came back. Word of the albino raccoon who lived with a farmer spread through nearby towns. Neighbors stopped by, wanting to see the rare creature for themselves. But no matter how many people came, Snowtail stayed close to Daniel, the one person who had first offered him food on a cold autumn morning. One warm evening, Daniel sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the hills. Snowtail lay at his feet, eyes half closed, breathing slow and steady. "You know," Daniel said softly, "I thought farming was just about hard work, crops, livestock, but you—" He reached down, gently scratching behind Snowtail's ear. "You've reminded me that sometimes the best thing a farm can give is a friend." And as the last light faded from the sky, the farmer and the rare white raccoon sat together in the quiet, two unlikely companions who had found each other in the most unexpected way. Thanks for watching. Don't miss the next story.